So welcome to Scottish Rum Festival. We have with us today Mr. Jason Scott, a good friend. Nice to see him. Haven't seen him in a long time. He's looking good. And he's here with us today. This is a pre-record, everyone, as we've been doing little interviews. We're just going to be talking away, spraffing away about Jason, his brand, his partners, what they do, what they like to do. So please introduce yourself. Jason, welcome, and introduce yourself, your brand, who you are, what you do.
Thanks very much, James. Good to see you too, dude. Good to see you doing well. Yes, my name's Jason. I'm co-owner of SeaWolf Rum. Background, a little bit of background though. Obviously, I'm Australian. Antipodeans that have an affinity for booze is not an uncommon thing.
Yeah. So
I went from mining into bartending when I came to the UK in 2018. And doing different areas of hospitality, fine dining to sort of bar work and whatnot. But I ended up opening a bar in 2006 with my business partner, Mike Aikman. The bar is called Bramble, which is, we worked hard at. I think it's quite well regarded. You know, we tried our best, and, you know, service and product has always been of the highest standards, and we try to anyway. Subsequently, we opened up another couple of bars in Edinburgh, Lucky Liquor, and also Last Word in Stockbridge as well. All very cocktail focused. Bramble doesn't even have any draft beer, which was, I think, quite oddly in 2006. Everybody was like, well, we can't do that, but, you know, it seemed to work out. So, we do have a tendency to sort of do the things the way that we want to do them. So getting to the rum, we've been talking about doing our own product for a while, and we made other products as well, but doing our own rum, and ultimately what it was is people were asking us, why don't you do your own gin? The gin boom was happening and all that type of stuff, and, you know, being stubborn old men as we are, we decided that, you know, as opposed to doing a gin, we would look at something that's maybe slightly unusual for Scotland. We met with a friend of ours, Gav Ferguson, who was also is Edinburgh-based and co-owner of Vino Wines, fantastic independent wine and spirits retailer. And we came up with the idea of SeaWolf, and essentially it was to produce tropical rum from untropical Scotland. Ultimately sort of trying to bring something fresh, you know, as opposed to sort of riding on the coattails of the gin boom. Try something different, and rum was a category that we thought we'd give a shot at. We came up with SeaWolf. SeaWolf is a term, a reference to the killer whale. And we do have small pods of killer whales, mainly off the east coast of Scotland. But it was a great reference and sort of connection to the maritime aspect of rum itself, with delving in too deeply with the sort of stereotypical maritime aspects, if we can put it that way. We deliberately went with a clear rum. We wanted something mixable. Ultimately, we were trying to reverse engineer the daiquiri, is what we were doing, is trying to find the best rum for daiquiri and then going back from there. Obviously, our background is bartending, cocktails, whatnot. So that was the best way that we thought to go about it. I know that other producers and whatnot go about it different ways, but, you know, I guess everybody has their own thought process of how to develop these things. And we're a flavour-led company. We're all about the juice. So it came down to what would make the best daiquiri. And this is what we came up with, which we can have a taste, Jane, if you want.
Go for it. Would love to.
You've got a wee sample there?
Yeah, got a wee sample.
I'd like to say that this is unusual for me to be having a tipple during lockdown, post-lockdown, but definitely not the case. Definitely not the case. So, I mean, straight away, you know, we're deliberately doing a white rum. You know, we're all about, you know, hashtag mixology. You know, it's all about the mixability of the product. We tend not to sort of go through a tasting. It's not really what we do. We try and showcase the spirit of the product in the drinks themselves as opposed to tasting them. But to give you an idea of what we're looking at, you know, we've got on the nose, we've got sort of pears and apples, candied as well as fresh. We've got some nice sort of skin aspect there. There's also an element of crushed grapes and grape seed. But it's very, very clean, I think. Yeah. Very clean. Again, the purpose of that is so that when we're making drinks, that although we want the rum to be present and to have to offer a certain level of prominence and character and nuance to the drink, we also want a slate that we can sort of build upon, build flavors upon. But yeah, it seems to work both ways. So if you have a taste of it, we're at about 41%. You can add a little bit of water to it to bring it down to sort of optimum sort of 26, 27, 28% ABV. But you know, we just tend to taste it at strength. But and then you get sort of banana chips and dried apple. It's got a really good mouthfeel. The reason that we have quite a good viscosity with the mouth is we do a slow fermentation for about 4 weeks. Yeah. And originally that was because we didn't have temperature controlled fermentation vats. So we just had to deal with the weather. And when we first started making it, we were making it in the winter. So it took forever. But what we realized is that slow fermentation process using 100% molasses gives us that lovely sort of viscous mouthfeel. So it helps sort of coat the mouth and the drink as well, gives body to the drink. So, but yeah, we're looking at sort of fruit and fiber sort of flavors, maybe without fiber. But there is a sort of cereal note there as well.
I get really interested in licorice note.
Yeah, there's an aniseed note there, which sometimes sort of comes across. You get sort of like almost what are the all sorts called? What are the all sorts called? Licorice all sorts.
I was going to say Bassett's.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah, those exactly. But all of them at once, type sort of scenario, because there is that sort of candied element as well. So
it is a lovely rum, and it's very interesting. I think you guys were the first. You were the first distilled Scottish rum.
First white distilled Scottish rum. Now, let's be honest. I mean, how well these things are documented, I don't know. But in the modern era, yeah, we very much were the first for sure. Yeah. And it's great to be, you know, at the forefront, if you want to call it that. But, you know, there are other people doing things, and mainly spice rums, to be totally honest. Yeah. And obviously, you know, Scotland loves the spice rum. Yeah. But it just
the category is really interesting. You know, the way everything's come about, and I think all of you producers, you're all coming at a product in a very different mindset as well, which is really interesting to see, because Scotland's got that history and it's got that heritage, and obviously whiskey distilling is massive. When you go into the rum kind of market, and there's a big, like, is it Caribbean, is it this? And it's much like whiskey, you know, Scotch is Scotch, whiskey can be made around the world, and the same goes for rum. You know, there's elements there, and I'm super stoked with the stuff you're seeing, how it's progressed from like Dark Matters yourself, and there's a lot going on, and it is, I think there's a uniqueness, and there's not one thing that kind of touches upon like what is Scottish rum at the end of the day, you know.
This is what should a Scottish rum taste like?
What should it taste like? What's the process? What's the profile?
Exactly, and we're not talking about, you know, the strict parameters of Scotch whisky here. We're talking, you know, we have the freedom with Scottish rum to, you know, it personifies the producer essentially. You know, what is your goal? What is your aim? Who are you trying to appeal to? You know, that type of thing. So yeah, it's not that is a beautiful part of the rum category in Scotland, and I think globally, it often sort of suffers. I think rum category suffers sometimes from maybe laxed regulations or guidelines. The way that I see it in Scotland is a small group of people doing it, and there's great room for flexibility. And I said that personification of the producers and how they want to go about it. Should there probably be tighter guidelines? Yeah, to a degree, because, you know, we need to not too tight, but tighter guidelines often bring, maintain that quality, I guess is the best way to say it. But yeah, I love what everybody's doing in Scotland, and it's quite a unique offering, I think. And it's such a strong background in, as you say, in the Scotch whisky distilling industry. It has been for centuries. So, why can't we take those important facets of what's going on there and the learnings that have been going on for so long and transfer some of that to the Scottish rum industry? I mean, we are 100% pot still. We're very proud of that. Again, it gives us more flavour and whatnot, we think, for what we're trying to achieve. So, yeah, we've very much taken that on board and then try to incorporate what we know. I mean, I'm not a distiller, mate. Definitely not. I'm barely a bartender at most of this age, but it's it's taking what you know and applying it to that product and hopefully appealing to a certain sector of the public. So
an element of blagging as we do so well in Scotland, But it is interesting. I mean, the story. I think it's interesting for people who want to build a brand, and there's so. I think what's interesting is what's coming out in Scotland. So many differences, so many different stories. Are they correct? Are they right? It's not. I was saying this something the other day. It's not for me to say one's right, one's wrong. Everyone's doing something that's quite unique, and there seems to be a real community around it. There's some, there's some standout products there as well. There's some products that, and even people are adapting. People are like brought out one product one year and then they're going, do you know what? We've had time to think about this. As we move into it. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Absolutely. And we've been. When did we start making this? It feels like an eternity ago. It's not actually an eternity ago, is it? We're talking December 2016. It feels like forever ago, but we've tweaked that recipe so many times from when we started out, and hopefully for the better. But again, it's that whole learning process, and it's not this sort of homogenization, dare I say, or that standardization of, say, a blended whiskey where the consumer expects that consistency all the way through. We're a small batch producer here. We have the flexibility to play with these things, and whether that be feedback from the customer or our own interpretation of what's going on and how we best to develop that and drive that forward, it's really important. I mean, we're at such a young stage in the category itself. There's room to move. There's room to learn. And I think that it's one of those sort of scenarios as well. When a good bar opens up on a corner of a street, more bars will go there and open up. And it's not competition, it's community. And this is how I see the Scottish rum category at the moment. There's so many people, as you say, doing their own thing, bringing their love and their passion to Scotland, to the industry, to the people. It can only be a win-win, definitely. So,
and you're right as well about how you think about process, how you, Mike, have decided, how you came about something. What's your journey? What's your thought process? How do you? And you obviously have to rationalize that with a consumer aspect, and what is rum. And that, again, is very interesting. And I think, because you see that with some of the other rum producers as well, how they're big fans of like Dunder or like massive ester products. And great. And that, it's much like the whiskey industry. That's what I love. Early whiskies, completely different to some of the space size to Lowlands. Although even some of that's changing now.
Sure.
And everything's being turned around. Innovation is a massive part of it, and all of that. I think we discussed this last year, and we said, what does it look like from last year to this year? It looks like you're giving yourself a really good baseline to start on for things to grow and improve and build a community even more. And someone even said to me, do you think some of the other rum producers from the Caribbean are a bit scared? And I was like, well, probably not scared, because they're massive. They're absolutely huge, at the end of the day. But they obviously will look at some people and go, do you know what, these guys are interesting. It's interesting the way that they're doing things, how they're thinking about it, how they manufacture it, what they do to get to bottle, and then how that communication works. So many massive positives, which are really...
This is it. I mean, the biggest challenge that we face is the raw ingredient. We're a small producer. Trying to buy it en masse or in volume is very, very challenging. at the right price, obviously, and so on and so on. But I mean, we're able to produce something of what I consider a very high quality, at a price point. I mean, even if you look at, majority of gins these days are, 35 to 45 pounds. You don't see, and we're talking, I mean, so
remember the British government take a massive portion of that in their own coffers,
Well, of course they do. Of course they do. Amongst, don't get me started.
But then that goes to the craft. The way I look at it goes to the time, the craft, the expertise, and dare I say it, cheaper products. The consumer has to be a bit wary at times, If you've got a product that's that cheap, that's then got X amount of taxation going on to it, how are you able to rationalize what's in that bottle for that price? And it's not for, it's for other people to question and think about,
I agree, but, we're all different. We all walk in different areas of life and different people in different economies. So, when we're doing like cocktail masterclasses and whatnot, what we say to our guests is that, buy the best ingredient for your budget. Because when you're making drinks, and again, this is a product made purely for cocktails. Your cocktail is only as strong as its weakest ingredient. Basically, it's that all. You got to break it down, shit in, shit out. But best for your budget. Your budget doesn't mean you have to be spending £80 on a bottle of this or whatever. Your budget might mean, for example, a bottle of Beefeater gin or a Tanqueray gin, which are, as far as I'm concerned, A-class products, and they're quite well. But they're produced at such a volume, that's why they're cheaper. We don't have that luxury, we're talking a very small skill to make this. So,
So it reflects the price and it reflects the quality and it reflects
does.
what you guys are doing.
Entirely does, man. There's a lot of care and attention. I mean, we were 2 years in recipe trials. 2 years.
Yeah.
Because we're just those guys who are just like, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right. As a client, we're an absolute pain in the butt. But
that's been said about you guys a few times, But, but there's also nothing wrong with that either. I don't always think, I don't use the words perfection at the best of times, although I'm getting better with just using it. But there's a road of excellence that you kind of, you have in your own head that you want to achieve certain things, And there's also I think for you and Mike, there's a why not attitude, which I think is like really, really good in people. Like, why not? Like, things can be done,
Of course it can be. That's it. I mean, it's often not the easiest of roads. Because, there's a reason why people weren't making rum in Scotland for a long time. And obviously, when we went to do that, to buy the raw ingredients, to try and, use FEs or fermentation vats with no temperature control on it in Scotland. I mean, in the hotter countries where they make rum, obviously it will literally just ferment itself. It's so hot. We don't have that luxury, so you have to reconsider the process. But we try very much and stick to traditional values when it comes to distilling. We don't add anything to ours. 100% molasses. We use a combination of rum yeast and champagne yeast. So again, which sort of helps with the flavor profile and sort of layers of flavor. But I mean, sometimes you make things more difficult than they need to be, but
totally. And that's the beauty of it all.
Yeah,
so what do you suggest? What would you? I see you've got a bunch of equipment there. Any thoughts on? Are you keen to make a drink for?
I can make you. I'll need to grab some ice. I can make you basically what I would consider our signature serve, I guess. Which, ultimately, we're talking about not riding on the coattails of the gin boom. So we then went and went, oh, do you know what? Rum and tonic is banging. It is. And it's trying to sort of create that crossover and get people to consider, I love a G&T, hot weather, cold weather, actually either works well, nighttime, daytime outside having a barbie. But rum and tonic is delicious. and it brings so much to the party. You know, it doesn't have to be ginger beer or Coke or whatever cola or whatever it may be, but a rum and tonic, SeaWolf and tonic is delicious, and we can do that with a white rum as well because of the way that we produce. But just give me 2 seconds, I'm going to grab some ice.
Very interesting, the rum boom and the way things are going. And you see, and one of the other producers was talking about this, I don't want to kind of masquerade just chucking my rum into, and I thought this was really positive to actually cut for someone who's produced a rum. They actually turned around and went, my rum might not suit all these other cocktails. And I was like, do you know what? That's well said, actually, because there could be an easy application, especially just jumping into drinks, being like, do you know what? My rum goes in this, and this is what I'm going to promote, and I'm going to do that. And that's interesting as well. The rethinking of like, what are we drinking? How are we drinking it?
How are we drinking? That's the big question. How are we drinking? And that's
flavor.
I mean, it's great to have a versatile product, but let's be honest, if you want a versatile product, you make vodka.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a clean palate. Whatever you chuck onto that base spirit is going to taste like that.
Oh, exactly.
With gin, there's certain botanicals in there that help to sort of, come to the forth. Or with rum, depending on rum, whether rum's aged or spiced or white, it just depends. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, my introduction to rum, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't even a big rum drinker because I grew up drinking Bundaberg rum, and I mean that stuff is that's a thing. That's a thing.
That's a thing, yeah. That's a tough thing.
I'm just going to leave it at that. Actually, you probably have to edit that out. But yeah, I'm not using bartendery ice or anything like that. It's just stuff out of my freezer.
As long as it's cold, as long as it fills the glass.
Well, this is it. I mean, should we get into ice? No, let's not get into ice. But those days of ice programs are long gone. But I think most importantly for the home consumer, what it's important that you fill the glass with ice because you want your drink to be the same from go to woe, which is really weird talking to you about this, but anyway, you get it. You know what we're doing here. So SeaWolf and tonic, fill it up with ice. I'm going to use a large measure, 50 ml. I've got a wee cough mixture number, which probably came with one of the kids' cough medicines because I don't have a proper measure in the house.
Don't need it.
Yeah.
The kids would probably just steal it if you did have and use it for something else, like a rocket or. The
amount of stuff that goes missing, mate. You're like, where's this? Where's that? And you're like, oh, I don't know. Anyway, so yeah.
Bottom of a toy box.
Yeah. So 50 ml of SeaWolf. Again, if this is obviously a built drink, if you can make a D&T, you can make a SeaWolf and tonic the same.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a few squeezes of lime there. Again, that sort of lovely zesty freshness. So yeah, we bottle a tonic.
Nice and crisp.
Nice and crisp.
And there is a lot of flavors in there. You get some grassy notes that are coming in there, a bit of vegetable. You even get like, dare I say it, but does that kind of agricole name maybe, that kind of distillate you get off some of the mezcals that's got like toasted fruit, sort of toasted mango, rich kind of baked sort of like aroma and then flavor profile that comes through as well, eh?
You're so right. I mean, at points when we're mixing SeaWolf, that sometimes you get almost like a diesely note in a really, really like endearing sort of way. At first, when I was coming across this, I was like, I wasn't sure about it, but after a while, you're like, no, that actually works. And then when you're sort of trying to balance flavors and you get a hint of that, or sort of a burnt cereal note, which is delicious. But sorry, James.
So good. I know. Cheers.
Lunch. But yeah, I mean, obviously I'm biased, man, but just as refreshing as G&T, if not more. And it makes a nice change, a nice step away from the G&T. So
totally. And there's so much, not just your product, but the range that's out there that's coming out. I mean, we're doing a I'm doing a wee client in Glasgow, and I'm trying to do very much, I'm positioning Scottish rums. You know, I'm a big rum fan, love whiskies as well. That's not to say I don't love gins and stuff too.
Yeah.
But, you know, for the love of seeing these products come out and the way that they can be showcased as well for a consumer, you know, and the differences in taste and profile is brilliant, you know.
There's something for everyone. And that, I mean, regardless of whether it's a spice rum category or a dark rum or a white rum, you know, even within those categories themselves, you'll find something, whether it be the aesthetics or the flavor profile, whatever. But yeah, there's plenty there, and different price points too. So yeah, I mean, long may it continue. There's only sort of platforms like this that will help move it forward, and not hopefully everybody benefits. You know, the producers as well as the consumer. So yeah, it can only be a win-win for sure.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much, mate. Hope to see you at Scottish Rum Fest soon. If for anyone else, follow these guys at SeaWolf, at Bramble Bar, Mothership. Is it Mothership Limited or Mothership?
Mothership, if you're looking to buy SeaWolf online, and obviously, you know, specialty retailers have it as well. But yeah, Mothership, we do a whole range of different spirits and cocktails and all those goodies. So
thank you very much, Pleasure. Have a good night. Good to speak to you, and we'll see you soon.
Take care.